Check the mic. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Can you say check?
Hello.
Come closer. Here. Check.
Check.
Hello, listeners.
Hello, Peter.
Hey, this is Carrie here from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Aerialist podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have my dear friend, Tammy Toditres. She is a dancer. She toured with Cirque du Soleil's MJ Immortal Tour for 3 years. And she was in LA as a commercial dancer for maybe the last 2 decades. We talk about her journey through dancing and touring and finding a home in Las Vegas with her husband and her 2 beautiful boys. She talks about the hustle of being a working mom and comforts me about my mom brain that is still like a cloud over my head. And we talk about retiring from the stage, the transition off the stage to other things, and the good and the bad and the luxury of, retiring on your own terms. And just check the show notes. There's a link to register for the free mini course by Wrap Your Head Around Silks. Check that out. It's a free gift for you guys. All right, let's get started. So podcast listeners, Tammy Toe is like an old dear friend of mine. Basically, back in like the 2000s, we were dancers together in the commercial industry. It's always cast by type. So we'd always end up in these auditions together with a couple other Asian women, and one would get it, one wouldn't. We'd all get it, we all wouldn't. And we became friends through that. And then we ended up doing this job called Asia Entertainment.
Yes, Asia.
And we would do these, it was a Vietnamese entertainment company, and we would do these shows like 1 to 4 times a year, full music videos, full stage production. And we traveled together, we danced together, we drank together, we got hungover together, we did everything.
That was the good life.
And then we all grew up and had kids. And Tammy is now living in Las Vegas with 2 beautiful boys. And she's married to her husband, who's also an acrobat. He's in Cirque du Soleil's Love. And she is in Cirque du Soleil's MJ1. And you're going to tell that whole story too. So Tammy...
Yes.
Let's start at the beginning. Tell us where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
All right. Yeah. So originally, I grew up in Seattle, Washington. Went to university there, danced there. Did the whole university, figuring I'd, end up at a desk job. And, in my college years decided, I really love to dance. It's something I had done growing up. And so on a whim, I tried out for the NBA dance team for the Supersonics, the Seattle Supersonics. And, I got the job. So I did that while, my last 2 years in college, and I fell in love with it.
I didn't know this about you.
Yeah, I was a Sonics girl for 2 years.
Awesome.
And it was awesome. It was one of those things. It was a part-time job. I was going to school and I got to do that. And it was like, wow, you can get paid to just dance in front of people. And I was dancing, in arenas full of people. So it was just something I kind of fell in love with. So then 2 weeks after I graduated college, I decided to move to LA. And so there began my LA career. I moved to LA and I always figured, I've got my college degree to fall back on. So why not? Like, you're only young once. So that's what I did. I moved to LA, and then, now 20 some years later, I'm still in the business. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah. And we'll pick up the story kind of after the arc of your LA, because I remember I was headed out for the Taylor Swift tour and you booked, what tour were you on with Christian?
Probably the Cirque du Soleil, the Michael Jackson Immortal World Tour.
Yes. Okay. So I remember you got that tour and then I didn't talk to you for a while because you were just touring. And then we did like a Skype somewhere and I met Christian via Skype. And then your whole story changes from there because you were just dancing in LA. Tell us, starting with the Immortal Tour.
Yeah. So, I was lucky enough to get hired for the Immortal Tour. I'd signed on for that tour for a year because I wasn't sure what it was going to be like working for Cirque du Soleil. As a dancer, that's not really something that, you're used to or know anything about. So I signed on for a year. And then a year stretched to 3 years. I met my husband early on the tour. Obviously we got to know each other, started dating. And, it was a great gig. It was life-changing. We traveled all around the US and then we went to Europe, Asia, Australia. We went all over the world, literally for 3 years. So it was a 3-year world tour. I opened the show and I closed the show and I was dance captain. So it was really just an amazing experience, especially being with your partner and just getting to travel. How often do you get to do that? And then very shortly after that tour ended, both my husband and I got offers to join shows in Las Vegas. So I ended up jumping on the Michael Jackson 1 show here in Las Vegas. I started rehearsals a week after Immortal closed.
Oh, wow. You did not have a break.
Not at all. Not a break at all. I literally came here and then even started rehearsals first before I went to LA to pack up my stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so quick.
And I remember you had bought a condo in LA thinking you were going to be in LA and then rented it out for the next 4 years.
Yeah, maybe even longer than that. I think I bought it back in 2010. And then I booked the Immortal Tour. So I left LA early 2011 and then just never really came back to LA after that.
Yeah, totally.
We ended up here in Las Vegas. And then, we figured we got an apartment for 6 months. We were just going to try it out. I'm from Seattle and my husband's from Switzerland. So Vegas just seems so foreign to us. And then, within a few months of being here, I found out I was pregnant. So that was a game changer. And then now we've been in Vegas ever since.
That story kind of rolled. You didn't really have any breathing points, but I kind of love that too, that it just happens. This is the Expecting Aerialist podcast. So do you have any prenatal birth story or postpartum that sticks out to you as something that would be like maybe interesting to our audience?
Definitely with my first, like with any new, pregnant mom, you are just panicked. I Googled everything, anything and everything. And, you just don't know. Every person is different. Every pregnancy is different. My labor process with my first was completely different than with my second, and I think the most you can do being a pregnant entertainer, particularly, right? Because you have all this panic, like, oh my gosh, how's this going to work? Am I going to be able to bounce back? Am I going to be able to get back into performing? And then once I do that, like, how do I juggle being a mom? And, and it happens. There's no difference between whether you're a mom that works a 9 to 5 or a mom that stays at home or a mom that works shows at night, for anyone that's expecting, just know it's going to work. It's going to work out the way it's going to work out. For some people, they make that choice that once the baby's born, that they don't want to perform anymore. They don't need to perform anymore, which is that's okay too. Whatever choice you decide to make is your choice alone. And, I think it's taking kind of some patience with yourself to understand that that's going to be your process. And you're just going to have this little bundle of joy that's amazing and cries and eats and sleeps and giggles and, all those things. So just take joy in that because, you'll never get that time back.
I think that I came to Vegas once and you guys met up with me at a cafe after I saw a show after you guys were done with your shows that night, and you had the baby because you had just picked him up at night care, I would say. Daycare, night care.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain like a regular show day for your family?
Yeah. So I'll say this. It was definitely easier when we had Ethan, that's my oldest, when he wasn't in school, because now he's a first grader. Before, we worked nights. Our normal schedule is like we would go to work at 5 and get home at midnight. For us, it didn't make sense to put our kids to bed early. We basically set them on a schedule that matched our own. So, they slept in the mornings. We had our daytimes with them. When we went to work, we would drop them off at our daycare. Luckily here in Las Vegas, because we're not the only family that works nights, there are daycares here that, either go really late at night or even 24 hours. So we would drop our kids off at, around 4 or 5 p.m. And we would go to our shows, go to our theaters, do our 2 shows, get out of our theaters like around 11:30, and then go pick up our kids. So by the time we pick up our kids and get home, it's about midnight. At that point, our kids are wide awake. So we would just all together eat late dinner as a family at midnight. And then our kids would go to bed at like 2 in. So obviously that's not going to work for most people.
Yeah.
But that's what works for our family, So that's what we did.
Even my family, you haven't met Asa, or, honestly, so many of my friends have met Asa. They just met him outside of me because he's in the industry. We have a studio in the basement and he's producing music until like 3, 4 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The Bean has rocked herself to sleep by then to house music that's emanating from the basement. She goes to sleep when I go to sleep. So she goes to sleep around 11:30 and she wakes up around 8:30. Mm-hmm. And most of my friends who have babies here in LA, they're down by 7 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they're up by 6. Any way you want to do it is totally fine. But to me, no matter what, if I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 or 6:30, I'm tired no matter if I got 8 hours of sleep or 5.
Yes.
I can't do it. Like, that's just me. Yes. So Asa and I decided a long time ago, when she was very young, that we were going to stay on our own schedule because that doesn't work out for us. We'd be zombies and then also not getting our work done at night because we're both night owls. I find this very refreshing to know that I'm not alone. I know it's different with Ethan being in first grade now. It will change when our Bean is in school, basically. But,
yes.
We're many years from that. And how old is Ethan now?
Ethan will be turning 6 in about a week.
Oh my goodness. This is crazy pants.
Yeah, he's 6 and his brother's 3.
With the pregnancy stuff, how did your body change? Did it change at all? Does it feel like, tell me, I'm so curious, especially since you're a lot farther out than me. I'm about 2 years out almost.
I will say this. So I was, I stayed, I guess, pretty little through my pregnancy. I was definitely like all belly. With my first, I actually got, you have to do the gestational diabetes test.
Oh, you had gestational diabetes?
I did and I didn't.
Okay.
Tested just right at right at the cusp. So, I had to go and see a nutritionist and I had to get, checked every month. And
was it too high or too low, Tam?
I couldn't tell you. Too high, I guess.
Okay.
I had to go through kind of that whole process. I had to check my blood like 4 times a day.
Yeah.
It was horrible. So I did all that. And, Ethan came out, he was 6 pounds, 10 ounces, just a normal, kind of on the smaller side of a baby. So it was really one of those things that my body processes the sugar a little bit slower or, so I tested positive for that, but with my second, I didn't. So for Luca, I was fine and didn't have to go through that whole process. sorry, to go back with the first. So for the last part of my pregnancy with Ethan, I was very conscious about what I ate, because that's part of the gestational diabetes plan is nutrition.
I just interviewed somebody, Jennifer LaLupa, one of my students. She had gestational diabetes. So I explained this whole thing on the podcast right before.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think it's quite common. Like, I think a lot of women, end up having that issue. But yeah, for me, I was, super aware. Every single snack, I had to do a, diet log and all those things. With my second, since I didn't test positive, I was way more kind of lackadaisical. Like I said, everybody's pregnancies are different. And with me, I really just kind of gained belly. With my first, I felt like I bounced back quite quickly because I went back into shows when he was 3 months old. So after 12 weeks, back in rehearsals, I was back training. And I think by the time he was, 14 weeks, I was doing 10 show weeks. That literally just snapped me back into shape right away. And if anything, I think I actually lost weight because I was breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. Wasn't even eating enough. Like, I had to constantly snack and constantly eat just to keep up with breastfeeding. And so then with Luca, with my second, I decided I was going to take longer. I didn't want to go back to shows right away. So with him, I waited until he was about 6 months. And then I went back into shows. Same thing. Like, I definitely, as soon as I started shows again, I kind of dropped back to my normal weight. I will say with my second, though, that I've still to this day, I have a little pooch. And the pooch just is never going to go away, I think, at this point.
Oh, don't tell me this.
Because, even if I'm skinny, in show shape, I just have this little kind of softness in my belly that just, I'm older now. So
it's the skin though, mostly, right? It's just the skin stretching twice.
Yeah, I think so. Because I know I have abs under there, but, not a lot of abs, but I got some. But yeah, so I will say I noticed that was a difference between my first and the second. That with the second, no matter, how many sit-ups or crunches or, ab things we did, there's just this little kind of pooch that just, I think, won't go away at this point. But I do have 2 beautiful boys, so I can't complain.
Yeah. And I don't have plans to have a second, so maybe my pooch will go away.
Exactly. Maybe.
Maybe asterisks. And then also I remember you telling me that you decided to change you talked to your bosses, whoever those people are, and you changed your track in the show somewhere along that time frame.
So I was a full-time performer in the show. I was a full-time dancer. And then I went on maternity leave. When I came back to being a full-time dancer. Maybe 6 months or so after being back in the show. At this point, I've been in the show for, 5 years. I've been full-time in the show. And my oldest, Ethan, is 5 or almost 5. So kindergarten is looming. And so, yeah, I had talked to, the powers that be that, I didn't want to work full-time anymore. I was really hoping to switch to what we call an on-call position, which is someone that comes in when the show needs them. So I kind of, had been talking to them about, that possibility. And then COVID struck. So, I ended up being furloughed for about 18 months. And so then that conversation kind of halted, right? Because the whole world stopped at that point, which was a blessing. And, my husband and I never would have had the opportunity to stay home and be with our kids and see them grow at this young age. And, we did the whole homeschool, virtual school thing with our son and did kindergarten, but we were lucky. We were able to travel. So we went and visited our family in Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
Very similar to our night schedule here. He did kindergarten, he started kindergarten at 5 p.m. And at 11 p.m. while we were in Switzerland because of the time difference.
To take a little bit of a tangent, when Cirque du Soleil basically dissolved, did you guys, I would have panicked. Because both of you, that's where your income was coming from. Like, what were the emotions there?
We kind of lucked out. And I'll say that in the sense, obviously COVID hit, entertainment just got, destroyed, everything halted. And yes, Cirque was in kind of a bad place. They were, it was all over the news. They were really, far in debt. So there was, all the talk of it going bankruptcy. There was a lot of layoffs. We actually lucked out because my husband and I were furloughed. So we weren't considered laid off. We were furloughed. And so Cirque basically maintained our link of employment, and they also covered our health insurance.
Oh, okay.
Was a game changer for us. Like most people, like we were eligible to file for unemployment, and with all the government, kind of bumps and stuff like that. The fact that our health insurance was covered for our family just, was a huge relief. Luckily as artists, because Cirque always knew that once COVID passed or once they were able to relaunch, the expectation was always for the Las Vegas shows to start up first. And the only way Cirque can guarantee that they could do that with a quick turnaround was to keep all of the artists basically linked. So that didn't necessarily happen for people who worked in the offices, and it didn't happen for all of the artists, but, we lucked out that we had that. So for us, we actually, like everyone else, we didn't know how long the pandemic was going to stretch. We didn't know what was going to happen. We had that to kind of ease our minds. And, and I also do taxes on the side. It's something I fell into about 6 years ago. So pandemic or no pandemic, everyone needs their taxes done. So I was able to do that throughout the pandemic. So we actually were okay. We weren't too panicked.
Tammy, you've also, like me, have been a very sensible Chinese woman. Planning ahead about 15 years, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. On average,
On average, about 15 years thinking ahead. Yours might be less anxiety producing than mine, but you've always just thought ahead. So back to where this question was originally going, the evolution of what you were doing on stage as we get to 2021.
So 2021 came. My son is now in first grade. He is in person. So he's going to school in the morning. So all of a sudden our lives switched, right? We are no longer able to, kind of have these nights, with our family. My oldest, he is up in the morning at 7:30. We drop him off at school. He doesn't get done till 3:30, which is basically right before we are supposed to head to work. So I got called back to work at Cirque in June, and Ethan started school in August. So very quickly after going back to work, I realized that this dynamic wasn't going to work for our family. Us working nights and Ethan being in school all day just meant we wouldn't see him. And for me, that broke my heart. Very shortly after I started work, I let my bosses know that this wasn't sustainable for me, that I would probably have to part ways with the show, or two, they would have to consider possibly giving me that, kind of on-call part-time contract. Plan A, plan B, plan C, D, E, and F. I had all these things worked out in my mind. And then, this kind of wild card got thrown in there. There was an artistic casting advisor position at Cirque that opened up. So like many other performers, I think I jumped on that and I applied. And this was back in end of July. And I found out that I got the job. So about 2-3 weeks ago now, I've actually transitioned. So now I still am at MJ1 currently, just as an emergency backup to the end of the month. But I'm actually the new artistic casting advisor for Cirque.
This is so exciting. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
You're perfect. I feel like, of course, they brought you on. It totally makes sense from what I know about you. How big is this department?
Well, so prior to COVID, the casting artist management umbrella, the team was about 34, 35 people.
Okay.
And that includes, everyone here in Vegas, Montreal, because Cirque du Soleil is based in Montreal. But now post-COVID, the team is down to about 10.
Oh, total. Okay.
Right. It's quite slim, because with the relaunch, they had to lay everybody off. Right. And obviously, if there weren't any shows going, there was no need for casting. Now that all the shows are starting to, relaunch and get back together, they're kind of slowly but surely opening up the department and filling positions. So I'm kind of the newest hire, and I'm based here out of Las Vegas. So my main focus, obviously, is to cast for dancers and characters, singers, musicians. But I'm kind of the contact right now here in Las Vegas. So right now it's kind of me, and I've got a partner who works with artist management, and we're holding down the fort.
Oh my God, this is so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm going to have to edit around myself when my brain doesn't work, which happens all the time, Tammy.
Girl, you're telling me.
Wait, I'm going to take a tangent. Has your mom brain ever gone back to normal? Did the cloud lift at some point?
Yes. The cloud does lift, because inevitably then like real mom brain has to kick in, and real mom brain is like, you have to function, with whatever your real life, entails, while running a ticker in the back of your head of like, okay, so I need to do this person's laundry, and then I need to get these snacks, and then, I got to make that appointment. So your mom brain like switches. So all of a sudden you're running at like 1,000 times faster than the normal human being.
But I think that having 2 kids versus 1 is momentously a lot more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. Like having 1 kid, like right now, we've got Ethan that goes to school during the day. And so then we just have Luca in the afternoons. We are just in awe of like how simple it is to have 1 child.
And as they get older, they'll play together. And so that'll be
absolutely
lovely. But in the meantime, I liken it to trying to hold sand in your hand and not drop any. That's what I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Because with my little bean, I just scoop her up and we go wherever we go. Not very many places. It's COVID. But I feel like I can just, her and I can just do anything together.
Yeah.
When you've got 2, that changes a bit. Okay, well, maybe I'll look forward to my mom brain where it's like, I can't think of the word that I'm trying to think of, and that wasn't the way it was before. Or just walking to a room and forgetting everything that I was thinking that I was getting from that room is way worse now.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely still have that now, but I think that's a little bit less mom brain and a little bit the opposite side. Like there's too many things to think about. And so then I just forget.
Yeah, I definitely have that where the things that are actually really important do stick.
Yes, exactly.
And then everything else falls by the wayside. Like what I had to order from Amazon. What the fuck did I have to order from Amazon?
Yeah, but you knew that Amazon was there. So then you go to Amazon and then you buy stuff, but it wasn't what you originally wanted.
It wasn't what you originally thought. And you spend less because you're not at Target.
Yeah, exactly.
In person, which is great.
Oh my gosh, Target.
I think I saved money from the pandemic because I don't actually step into Target anymore. Because that was just like $150 later.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I am just personally so excited for you to be stepping into this new role. Number one, because I think it's perfect for you. You are always such a great connector of things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's exciting about this new job for you?
A lot of things. Like I said, it was something, the job opening kind of popped up, and on a whim, I applied for it because I knew, I needed a change in my life, and going through the interview process and the hiring process. And now that I'm, 3 weeks into the job, I love it. It kind of checks all the buttons for me at this point. I'm able to work in the daytime, so I have my nights free to spend with my family and put my kids to bed. I'm able to work for a company that I've worked for the last 10 years. So that was really awesome to be able to transition within the company out of performance. And then I still have my foot in entertainment. I'm looking and searching for new talent, and I'm working really closely with the senior artistic directors and, figuring out what their needs are. And so there's a part of me that still really gets to be artistic. I get to look at the shows and, kind of see what the fit is. And having been in the show, right? Like having been in Michael Jackson 1 for all these years, I have like that inside knowledge, that maybe someone else might not have. So, it's great. It's the prospect of, also being able to, help people find, connect people with work. There's also the flip side of that, right? So for all the people that you find a job, you're able to place them into a job. There's all the other people who submitted their stuff that won't get the job. Having been in LA for 10 years and knowing that that's part of our reality, you're not going to book every job that you submit for. So, I'm just really excited. I think, like you said, this is something I've kind of, on the side, even while I was living LA, always had my ear to the floor and, knowing what gigs were coming up, and was always the first to kind of recommend, friends or recommend talent. So yeah, like you said, I'm really excited about the new role, and it's kind of right up my alley. So it's Cirque du Soleil. It's a company I've worked for now for so long, and it's just nothing I ever would have imagined working for as a dancer. So I'm really eager to share that, to let LA dancers, New York dancers, just everyone know, hey, this is an entertainment company that, is great to work for as a dancer.
Yeah, not just the acrobats, not just the aerialists, because I think that dancers don't necessarily think of it as a job possibility. Tammy, I wanted to tell the audience one of my favorite memories of you.
Okay. Should I be scared?
No, but it was definitely drinking and dancing were definitely involved. So I think we were in Texas. Either Dallas or Houston. We were there to tech and perform for this show. It wasn't just pre-baby. It was pre-everything.
Right.
Pre-responsibilities, pre-serious romantic relationships. It was before any of that.
We were children. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We were free birds.
Yeah.
So the only responsibility we had at that moment was to dance the show and to do it well. Mm-hmm. We were also choreographed by this amazing woman, Kristen Dennehy.
Amazing. Mm-hmm.
Like the coin of Kristen. One side is so professional, on point, very high expectations for us as her dancers. Mm-hmm. Very high expectations. But the other side, she's so fun. And she would kind of turn a blind eye when we drank at night, even when we had to rehearse and perform in the morning.
Right.
She would turn a blind eye, or even turn a blind eye while she drank alongside us. I love myself. We call her Queen Bee because she was the queen.
Queen Bee. Yes.
So anyways, we had gone out as a group the night before. I don't know how much you drank. I drank quite a bit. I remember one of the singers famously passed out in the club.
Yeah.
We sat him upright and just put paper towels all over his chest. So when he threw up a little bit, just dribble down the napkins. Do you remember this?
I do. We really lived glamorous lives back then.
Oh my God. So, the thing is about us is that we knew if you're going to party like that, you still have to do your job the next day. There's no pass.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we call professional drinking. You party hard, but then you work hard.
Right.
So the next day, Tammy was not feeling herself, and she brought a pillow with her to our tech rehearsal. In between, when she had to dance, she would lay in the wings or somewhere in the theater in a child's pose with the pillow, and she would just just not doing well.
Not doing well at all. Mm-mm.
But then it was time for her to get on stage. And I remember seeing her like arise from this child's pose, just, step ball chains chasse onto the stage and then grand jeté.
Yeah.
Whatever the entrance was, like grand jeté, like split leap, full out, amazing, perfect. Finished her choreography, came back to her pillow, and went right back down to child's pose.
I probably have PTSD from that day, I think.
I mean, I was like, what a pro. That's the thought I was having.
Yeah. I just remember, after painfully waking up that morning and getting to the theater, I had to scout out every trash can that, was within running distance of the stage. And I definitely had that pillow and was lying on the floor until absolutely necessary for me to stand up.
But then you wouldn't know the difference. And there were many times where we would get ready for the show. There's that break where the audience is filling the seats. Mm-hmm. We would go and do a couple of really quick drinks. Mm-hmm. And this was before I was an aerialist. This is just dancing. And we would do a couple quick drinks before. Oh, no, it wasn't that. It was, we would have 2 shows in a row.
Yes.
And between the shows, we would go to the hotel bar or whatever, get a really quick.
Yeah.
When I say quick, I mean like quick drink. Mm-hmm. Put our costumes on for the beginning of the show and then do the second show. I have to say, when we did that, my second show was way better than my first.
I think all of us. I think it made us better performers,
I feel like we were so on point. Like I did not miss counts.
No.
And it was choreography. Like it was she did not make easy numbers. There was a lot of numbers. It was like a hustle. Yeah. The song is like 8 minutes long for some reason when a regular pop song is like 4 minutes. Oh, Tammy, I have so many good memories.
Yes.
It was a good time.
It was a great time.
All jokes aside, that whole time that we're talking about really taught me how to become a professional. So now that I'm an instructor and a teacher and I have dozens of regular students who I'm trying to turn into professionals or assist this process, I don't know if they had the same opportunities that we had to really learn this stuff because there's just not as many opportunities.
Yeah.
Like they're working less, basically.
Yeah.
I learned so much about how to become a professional in the air and on the ground by working, not necessarily by taking class.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you find that, what do you find with younger dancers? And
I definitely agree with you. There's only so much you can learn in the classroom, whether that's dance or, aerial. There has to be something to say about just real world experience, being in the room, that pressure of learning movement, quickly and efficiently, also adjusting, that's not what the client wants, kind of being able to switch what you're doing on a dime. And that's not something that you would necessarily learn, in a class. And there's also something to be said about just character and how to act professional.
This is the biggest thing, I think.
Absolutely. Because everyone has talent, everyone has skills, but ultimately you have to know how to behave and how to be respectful. And I totally agree with you. I think sometimes when, we've got younger dancers that join our shows, you see the difference. You see the difference between a seasoned performer and someone who's been in the business for a little while and someone who's, green and this is their first job. And, we're also in a world where it's all about social media, right? There's a lot of people who are Insta famous and TikTok famous and, they're earning good money through those means. So to actually now then have to be in a room with a choreographer working for a client, that's something that they're not used to also. So, I think it's really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how, especially post-COVID, right, how our industry evolves in that sense.
And Tammy, I don't know if you've had to do this already, but how does one from the casting end suss that out?
Wow, it's hard to say. Like you said, I'm still pretty new in the whole process. I am all about recommendations. At this point, if you are recommended to me by someone that I trust and that I know has good work ethic, there's a lot to say. And I'm pretty sure you and I have had this conversation before, being in the industry, being in LA, if you're not a good person to work with, that news travels very quickly.
Yes.
Almost faster than if you're good to work with, right?
Yep.
If you're someone who's a pain, difficult to work with, has a personality that's not a team player, that moves quickly. So, I still feel like that holds true now. If I'm getting recommendations from people, if they're hard to work with, you find that out quite quickly, I think.
So, note to my students, I always tell them this, being a teacher, sometimes in 2021, people think it's more customer service than coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so, note to my students, I am paying attention. If you're an asshole,
yeah,
and 99% are not, but that professional attitude should be everywhere you go.
Absolutely.
When you're in class, when you're training, because the people around you are the ones that are going to hire you.
Yes.
That's what I've experienced. Or if you're my student, I let the jobs that maybe my tribe aren't right for anymore because have more experience.
Right.
Those jobs trickle down from my tribe of aerialist girls. They're like, hey, there's this job. None of us are available or interested. What do you guys think? Is there somebody that you recommend? And it'll go through us and it'll trickle down to our students. And the ones that are not easy to work with or really hard to train, I'm not going to recommend those people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I don't want to do that to the client.
Of course.
And then it looks bad on me. It looks, it's a reflection on me. And I don't want that bad reflection. What I was thinking when you were talking about your experience as, you've gone through all the stages, you've danced, you were dance captain, you went through all these stages. And what I always found obnoxious about casting directors here in LA or wherever I would get casted is their disconnect from the reality of everything else. Like either they weren't dancers before or they don't know the process in and out. And what I love about, and probably if I can imagine one of the reasons why you got the job, is because having all that experience will hopefully make that disconnect disappear with you. Sometimes not knowing all of the elements, because obviously when things get casted, especially in LA, you look at the breakdown and then you look at the person hired and you're like, really?
Yeah.
Or, like, that doesn't make sense. Who made that decision?
Right.
And of course, again, I'm going to say there's a lot of elements that you never know. Maybe the client was like, well, I know it doesn't make sense, but she's my boss's daughter, whatever.
Right.
Whatever it is. But that disconnect was always so obnoxious to me. And I feel like you're going to be able to bring everything that you have to it and hopefully make it all slightly different than that.
I think that's my goal. I do think that was something that absolutely worked in my favor as far as getting the job. Yeah, because I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I think there is a disconnect. Oftentimes casting, they might have been performers or had been in the industry at one point, but there is oftentimes that disconnect or a lot of time has passed. In my situation, I've worked for Cirque, right? I've been in their shows. I've been on a touring show. I've been on a resident show, worked for the company for 10 years. But prior to that, I freelanced, I was gigging in LA. So I'm well aware of kind of also what that feels like, to go to big auditions and not get the job or go to an audition that's not run well, where you just feel like your time was wasted. So, I feel like I am able to kind of bring all of those experiences and try to adjust. And, like I said, Cirque du Soleil is well known in the aerial world, acrobatics world, circus world. It's a company that, people really want to work for. But for dancers, not so much. We want to tour, we want to backup dance, we want to do TV film. And Cirque is not really a company that I know for me, at least, it didn't come in mind at all. So my goal really is to kind of change that. I really want people to realize like you can have an awesome career here. You can travel the world and you're not a backup dancer. Like you are a dancer. You're one of the stars on that stage. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's absolutely. I think my experience and, I'm literally fresh off the stage, right? Like I just stopped doing the show. So it's all really fresh. I know the struggles and I know what it feels like to be in a show. And I've been on that side where you're like, why did they hire that person? God, they don't fit with our team here. Or, so I get it. And I'm hoping that, I can change gears and apply that and hire great talent that's great to work with. And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. You're like the great fit to find good fits, I think. Last question. I know that you just assisted in finding your replacement for your role in MJ1 and the beautiful Sarah Moser, who is a friend of all of ours.
Yeah.
Again, I was like, that totally makes sense, Sarah Moser. 100% makes sense. It's so great. Great. She's an awesome chick. Do you have any emotions around leaving the stage? And of course, nothing's ever final. Like you could find yourself into a job again, but
right.
Are there emotions around, at least for now?
I feel like it hasn't quite sunk in yet. My official last day at the show will be at the end of this month.
Oh, okay. So you're not actually...
I technically am. Like Sarah Moser is in the show, so I'm not there currently, but I am still like on call.
Okay, got it.
I'm going in on, next week and the week after. And I'm sure I'm going to be an emotional wreck. There's no doubt, right? It's something I've been a performer for, a really, really long time. And for now it is, my goal is to close that chapter. I'm ready to move forward. Michael Jackson 1 has been my home for the last 6, almost 7 years. I have friendships there, that I'll cherish. And, even as a casting advisor, I will still have my foot in the door at the theater from time to time. I'm really happy to be able to basically end it on my own terms and, healthy, have all my limbs and everything's intact. Yeah. To like kind of close that chapter and say, yeah, I'm not going to be on that stage anymore. It's bittersweet, but I'm really excited.
I feel like you and I are similar in that way now that we have kids, and I'm teaching more than I'm performing. I only perform randomly when things come up. I'm not in a contracted show right now. It feels fine, to be honest. I like the fact that my agent still puts me out for commercials, so I have an opportunity to be on set one day here and there. The show's never completely over. For example, I think something that would have not made me happy in the past, like I basically turned down some teaching hours for some like primetime classes because I didn't have a babysitter.
Yeah.
And it wasn't worth it to me to try to find one. Maybe I can't trust these new people right away and then I have to cancel. Like it didn't make any sense for me. So I just turned it down and I have more time with the bean. And my student last night was like, oh, I'm really having mixed feelings about you not doing those classes. I'm like, mixed feelings or are you upset? She's like, I'm upset. But I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm fine because priorities change, and rightfully so, I think. Dancers have a shelf life. So I always knew that there was a retirement on the horizon. And how would I feel about that? And she's kind of changed everything for me because it's not like retiring into nothing. It's retiring into like spending more time with these beautiful kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
I personally never thought I'd want to spend so much time with my kid. I just really do. And it doesn't mean I don't want balance and I don't want my work. Obviously, I'm working right now. But I just figured out ways to do both. For you, are you working at home or are you going into an office?
Right now, I'm working from home. And that will gradually transition, as the team kind of grows. It will become more of an office job. But luckily right now, I'm able to work from home most hours. To tag on to what you were saying, I actually do feel like with the pandemic, that was the perfect segue into my retirement. Being home with my family and just, spending 24 hours a day in my house. I realized like, I don't need to be on stage. This feels good. It feels good to be home and work from home and not be tied to a show schedule and not to be tied, like, you don't get to vacation when you want a vacation. You vacation when the show is dark.
Mm-hmm.
To not be tied to that, you know, it's been however many years that, you know, I've juggled my life around work and show schedules. And so I'm just grateful for that. You know, there's so many perks to being able to move forward and move on. And I wouldn't change my career for anything. I love how my life went and how I dedicated my life to performing. I think at a certain point, like you said, your priorities change, you know?
I think it's lovely. And I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for myself to get into what I cringe when I say mid 40s. If you would have asked me back in 2000, 2001, if I thought I was going to be able to say that, I mean, that's a win on its own.
Right.
To perform for 20 some years and to not be injured.
Yes.
Not in a big way. You know, both of us,
Yeah.
you know, I'm still using my body on a daily basis and it functions for me. There's a lot of gratitude around that. And I also think the last piece is, at least for me, the pandemic has helped that my full identity is not wrapped around my performing life.
Right.
And that really, I think, is a healthy thing.
Oh, absolutely. Agreed. Yeah. We're so used to performance being, like you said, our identity, right? We're known as performers, and to know that you can just be mom on the back end, you know, and, you know, I was so lucky. We had a friends and family dress rehearsal a few weeks ago, and it was the first time my kids had ever seen me perform. I could have stopped performing after that night. Honestly, I was a mess. I'm not going to lie. I was
like, you were full. Your heart was full.
My heart was full because, you know, they've seen like videos of my show, or they've seen rehearsals and trainings at the theater. But this was the first time, like, both my kids sat in the audience with my husband and watched my show from start to finish. And of course, being a mom, you know, I was like, oh, do they have enough snacks? Do they need to pee? Or is the music too loud? You know, I have all these things running through my brain. But to see their little faces in the audience, and it really was full circle for me, you know, to have that opportunity to show them what mommy's work was, you know, or what mommy's work is. And it was incredible. And so honestly, like I said, after that show, I was 100% ready to retire. Because for me, it was like my kiddos got to see me do what I do. And now I'm ready to move on, you know?
Tammy, you are a joy in my life, and I love our relationship. Like, you know, we both are very busy, and I can go for 2 years and not see you or talk to you. And it's like it was yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And I cherish that. It's amazing.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello.
Can you say thank you?
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Bye.
She says bye. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks to Tammy Toe. Thanks to Asa Watkins for post-production and music. And if you would honor me with a 5-star rating and a review anywhere you get your podcasts, it really helps others find this podcast. And just a reminder, check the show notes to register for the mini course by Wrap Your Head Around Silks. So excited to have you guys. Thanks for listening. This is the Expecting Aerialist podcast. What else would you like to say? Say over and out.
Out.
Ha.